The Unseen Wall, a complete audiobook. Right now, someone is deciding how you're going to feel today. They're borrowing your time, your mental space, your emotional bandwidth, and you're letting them. Not because you're weak, not because you're too nice, but because no one ever taught you the invisible boundary that separates their emergency from your responsibility. This audiobook isn't about being kind or being cruel. It's about the unseen wall, the psychological architecture that keeps other people's chaos from colonizing your mind. And by the time we're done, you'll know exactly how to build it brick by brick, so you never lose yourself to someone else's storm again. Chapter 1. The Theft You Don't See Coming. Let me tell you something most people won't admit. The person draining your life isn't your enemy. They're not some villain twirling a mustache. They're the friend who just needs 5 minutes, the family member who only wants to vent, the coworker who really needs your help real quick. And here's the part that stings. You let them. Most people think drama is the problem. They think the loud conflicts, the screaming matches, the obvious manipulation, that's what steals their peace. Wrong. Drama is easy to spot. Drama you can walk away from. The real theft? It's quiet. It's polite. It's wrapped in need. They ask for 5 minutes and take 50. They dump their problems in your lap and walk away lighter while you carry their weight for days. They cry on your shoulder until your shirt is soaked, then disappear until the next crisis. And you? You sit there wondering why you're so exhausted when you're just being a good person. Let me be crystal clear. You weren't born responsible for other people's feelings. You were trained into it. Think back. Who got the gold stars in your childhood? The kid who caused problems? The one who spoke up when something felt wrong? No, it was the kid who kept the peace. The one who made mom smile when she was stressed. The one who didn't rock the boat when dad had a bad day. The one who absorbed everyone else's emotions like a sponge so the house could stay calm. You learned early. Your value comes from making other people comfortable. Your worth is measured by how well you manage everyone else's feelings. Your job is to shrink so they can expand, and now you're an adult, still performing the same emotional labor. Still believing that if you just care enough, if you just give enough, if you just sacrifice enough, everyone will finally be okay. Here's the truth. Nobody tells you. They'll never be okay on your energy alone. You can't fix people who won't fix themselves. You can't heal people who won't do the work. You can't save people who keep jumping back in the water. But here's what really happens. Here's the mechanism of the theft. Energy vampires don't announce themselves. They don't walk up and say, "Hi, I'm gonna drain you dry." They're smarter than that. They audition you. They test you. They start small. Can you listen for a second? Just a second. Harmless, right? Can you help me real quick? Real quick. What kind of person says no to that? I just need to vent. Just vent. You're not solving anything, just listening. Where's the harm? And when you say yes without limits, you've just signed a contract you didn't know you were negotiating. You've just told them your time has no boundaries. Your energy has no price. Your peace is available to the highest bidder of need. That second becomes an hour. That real quick becomes your whole afternoon. That vent becomes a therapy session you're not qualified to provide and definitely aren't being paid for. And the worst part? You feel guilty for noticing. You feel selfish for being tired. You feel mean for wanting it to stop. Listen to me. That guilt is the weapon they use to keep you trapped. Not consciously, maybe. Not maliciously. But it's working nonetheless. Because here's what they figured out about you, even if they don't say it out loud. You're someone who values being good more than being whole. You're someone who'd rather be depleted than disappoint. You're someone who mistakes martyrdom for love, and they need that. They need someone who won't say no, Who won't set limits? Who won't ask, "What are you doing to fix this?" They need someone who'll just absorb until there's nothing left. But here's the question you need to ask yourself right now. What happens when there's nothing left of you? Who benefits when you're empty? When you're exhausted? When you've given so much to everyone else that you've got nothing for yourself? Not them, not really. Because an empty well can't give water. A burnt-out light can't illuminate anything. You think you're being noble. You think you're being kind. But you're not teaching them self-sufficiency. You're teaching them dependence. You're not helping them grow. You're becoming their crutch. And crutches don't heal broken legs. They just make it easier to avoid the work of getting stronger. Here's what nobody told you. Boundaries aren't cruel. They're necessary. They're not about being cold. They're about being honest. Honest about your limits. Honest about your capacity. Honest about the fact that you're a human being, not an emotional dumpster. You have a choice here. You've always had a choice. You can keep playing this game, keep signing these invisible contracts, keep giving pieces of yourself until there's nothing left. Or you can wake up to the theft that happens in the gray area between helping and disappearing, between kindness and self-destruction, between love and losing yourself entirely. You don't need permission to protect your peace. You don't need anyone's approval to value your energy. You don't need to justify why you can't carry their burden on top of yours. And here's the uncomfortable truth they don't want you to realize. Most people won't respect your boundaries until you enforce them. They'll push. They'll test. They'll make you feel guilty for having limits, because your lack of boundaries was working really well for them. But that's not your problem to solve. Your problem is the theft. The quiet, polite, needs-based theft that's been happening so long you thought it was normal. It's not normal. It's not healthy. And it ends when you decide it ends. Not with drama. Not with explanations. Not with apologies. Just with a simple truth. Your energy belongs to you first. Chapter 2. Why Just Say No. Doesn't work. You've heard the advice 1,000 times. Just say no. Set boundaries. Put yourself first. And you've tried it. You really have. You practiced in the mirror. You rehearsed the words. You told yourself, this time I'm going to be firm. This time I'm going to stand my ground. And then the moment came. The ask, the request. The hey, can you just... And you folded like a cheap lawn chair. Not because you're weak. Not because you lack courage. But because saying no without a system is just willpower, and willpower runs out. Let me explain something crucial. Willpower is a finite resource. It's a muscle that gets tired. Every decision you make, every temptation you resist, every time you choose the hard thing over the easy thing, it depletes. And by the time someone asks you for just 5 minutes at the end of a long day, your willpower tank is already empty. That's why you cave. That's why you say yes when you mean no. That's why you commit to things you know you'll regret. It's not a character flaw. It's a design flaw in your approach. You've been trying to win a war with a strategy that doesn't work. You've been relying on in-the-moment strength when what you need is a pre-built structure, a system, a framework that makes boundaries automatic instead of optional. But here's the deeper problem. Here's the real reason just say no doesn't work. You don't believe you have the right to. Sure, intellectually you know boundaries are healthy. You've read the articles. You've seen the Instagram posts. You know that self-care isn't selfish and all that. But deep down in the place where your beliefs actually live and make decisions, you think boundaries make you a bad person. You think protecting your peace makes you selfish. You think saying no makes you cold. You think having limits makes you less loving, less caring, less worthy of being called a good human being. And where did that come from? Remember what we talked about in Chapter 1. You were trained, conditioned. You learned that your value comes from availability, from sacrifice, from putting everyone else first and yourself last, if at all. So when someone asks for your time, your energy, your attention, and you feel that instinct in your gut, that voice that says, I don't want to do this. What do? You override it. You ignore it. You tell yourself you're being dramatic. You guilt yourself into saying yes while your body is screaming stop, because you don't trust yourself. You don't trust that your discomfort is valid. You don't trust that your no is legitimate unless you have a really good reason. And by really good reason, you mean something catastrophic, something undeniable, something nobody could possibly question. But here's what you need to understand. I don't want to is a complete sentence. I don't have the capacity is a valid reason. That doesn't work for me requires no further explanation. You don't need to justify your boundaries. You don't need to prove your limits. You don't need to present a case to a jury of their feelings before you're allowed to protect your peace. But you will. You'll keep doing it until you build the system that makes it unnecessary. So let's talk about why your boundaries keep failing, why they collapse the moment any pressure gets applied, why guilt shows up and your resolve evaporates like morning fog. Because your boundaries aren't boundaries, they're suggestions. Listen carefully. Boundaries without clarity are just wishes. They're vague intentions. They're I really should, and I'll try to, and maybe this time. And none of that works when someone looks you in the eye and says, I thought you cared. That sentence right there. I thought you cared. That's the manipulation that ends your resistance. Because you do care. You care too much, actually. And they know it. And they're using it. Not always consciously. Not always maliciously. But they're using it. And you fold because you never defined what's negotiable and what's non-negotiable in advance. You never drew the line in concrete. You never decided ahead of time, under zero pressure with a clear mind. This is where I stand. This is what I will not compromise. This is the boundary that doesn't move. Instead, you're making the decision in real time, in the moment, under pressure, while guilt is whispering, while their need is staring at you, while your people-pleasing programming is screaming. Just say yes, just make them happy. Just avoid the discomfort. And decisions made under pressure always favor the other person, always, because you're not thinking about what's best for you. You're thinking about how to make this feeling go away, how to avoid their disappointment, how to not be the bad guy. That's not a boundary. That's a negotiation you've already lost. Here's the truth. You can't set boundaries in the moment of violation. By then it's too late. By then you're already playing defense. By then your willpower is already being drained by their expectation, their disappointment, their subtle guilt trips. You need to build the system before the ask. You need to know your limits before someone tests them. You need to decide what you will and won't do before their need becomes your emergency. That's the key. That's the system. Clarity creates boundaries. Not courage, clarity. Courage is what you need when you're unclear, when you're making it up as you go, when you're hoping your willpower will be enough this time. But when you have clarity, when you've already decided, when the answer is predetermined, you don't need courage. You just need consistency. Think about it. You don't struggle to say no to things you're absolutely clear about. You don't wrestle with guilt when someone asks you to do something that clearly violates your values. The struggle only exists in the gray area, in the space where you haven't decided, where you're still negotiating with yourself about what's acceptable. That gray area is where you're losing. That's where manipulation lives. That's where guilt operates. That's where your boundaries collapse under the weight of their need and your uncertainty. So here's what you're going to do. Not someday. Not when you feel ready. Now, you're going to define your non-negotiables. You're going to write them down. Not in your head where they can shift and soften and bend. On paper, in ink, where they're real and concrete and undeniable. What time is yours? What energy is not available for distribution? What requests get an automatic no? What kinds of relationships are you no longer available for? You have a choice. You can keep winging it, keep hoping your willpower will hold, keep wondering why you always cave, or you can build the system, the structure, the framework that makes your boundaries automatic. It's not about being mean. It's about being clear. It's not about not caring. It's about caring for yourself the same way you care for everyone else. It's not about becoming cold. It's about becoming whole. You don't need their permission to define your limits. You don't need anyone's approval to decide what you're available for. You don't need to feel guilty for having needs that matter. Your boundaries don't fail because you're weak. They fail because they're not built, and what's not built can't stand. You learned why just say no keeps failing. Now it's time to learn what actually works, the framework that makes boundaries unbreakable. Chapter 3. Stop over-explaining yourself. Every time you over-explain, you trade peace for permission. You give your calm away just to prove your intention. You turn your truth into a debate that never needed to happen. You don't owe anyone a PowerPoint presentation about your boundaries. You don't need to convince, persuade, or justify your decisions. Because when you start explaining, you start defending. And when you start defending, you've already lost control of the frame. You're not here to be understood by everyone. You're here to be aligned with yourself. Think about this. How many times have you said, "I'm sorry, I just wanted to," or "I didn't mean it that way," or "I'm not mad, I just feel." You do this not because you're weak, but because you were trained to keep everyone else comfortable, even at the cost of your own peace. You were taught that being understood equals being safe, but it's the opposite. The more you need to be understood, the more control you hand to other people. Here's the truth. Now, you can't control how they interpret you. You can't control how they feel. You can only control your clarity. And once you've said your truth calmly once, that's enough. After that, silence is your boundary. Silence is your punctuation mark. Silence says, "I'm done explaining." When you over-explain, you open the door for manipulation. Because every manipulator listens for cracks. The words you add, the guilt you feel, the justifications that reveal where you can be controlled. They don't need your explanation. They need your uncertainty. Every maybe, every I guess, every I just wanted to say. It weakens the wall you're trying to build. That's why the strong don't argue. They withdraw. They don't prove. They move. They don't explain. They decide. When you master that, you'll feel something powerful, quiet control. Let's make this real. Imagine you say, "I can't make it tonight." Now watch what your mind does. It rushes to fill the silence. You start explaining, "I'm really tired. I've had a long day. I don't want you to think I'm avoiding you." Stop. All of that is emotional leakage. You just diluted your peace to avoid disappointing someone. But disappointment is not your responsibility. Alignment is. A complete sentence can end with a period, not an apology. "I can't make it tonight, period." No explanation. No justification. No backpedal. Because when you stop over-explaining, you stop negotiating your worth. You have to understand something fundamental. The people who demand explanations are often the ones who benefit from your confusion. The people who respect your boundaries won't need paragraphs. They'll need clarity. And the more you explain, the less they hear you anyway. Over-explaining doesn't make people understand you. It makes them doubt you. It makes them think you're uncertain. It tells them your no can be bent if they just keep talking long enough. So from this moment on, your goal is not to explain, it's to state. Your job is not to defend, it's to decide. You have a choice, to trade your peace for their comfort, or your silence for your control. Choose silence, every time. Let's talk about your tone. Your tone communicates more than your words ever will. A firm, calm tone with steady eyes will carry more authority than 1,000 words of explanation. People feel your energy before they hear your logic. That's why no, spoken slowly, calmly, confidently, is enough. You don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to soften your truth. You just need to mean it, and mean it once. This is emotional discipline. It's not about being rude. It's about being clear. Clarity is kindness. Over-explaining is chaos. When you stop explaining, you'll lose some people. The ones who fed off your justifications. They'll call you cold. They'll call you distant. Let them. Their confusion is not your emergency. The right people will never need you to over-explain to feel close to you. The right people will respect your no, your silence, your simplicity, and the wrong ones will test your wall again and again until they realize it no longer moves. Here's a practice. The next time you feel the urge to explain yourself, pause. Breathe. Ask, am I explaining to connect or to be approved of? If it's for approval, stop. If it's for clarity, say it once, then end it. Repetition builds strength. Every time you resist the urge to explain, you reinforce your unseen wall. Every time you choose silence, your peace gets thicker. Every time you walk away without defending, your energy stays yours. Remember this, no is a complete sentence. It's one of the strongest affirmations of self-respect you'll ever speak. It says, I trust myself enough to not beg to be understood. That's the key. You don't need their permission. You need your decision. Let me give you a visual. Imagine you're standing inside a quiet room. The door is closed. Outside, people are shouting, knocking, demanding to know why. Why you didn't show up. Why you changed. Why you said no. You don't open the door. You don't explain through the wood. You stand still, breathing deeply, calm. Because you know, at the moment you open that. Chapter 4. The 4 people who will test your wall. You built the wall. You set the boundaries. You defined your limits. And now you think the hard part is over. It's not. The hard part is what comes next. The testing. Because the moment you change the rules, people are going to test whether you mean it. They're going to push. They're going to probe. They're going to see if this new version of you is permanent or just a phase they need to wait out. And here's what you need to understand. It's not personal. It's pattern. They're not attacking you. They're trying to restore the dynamic that worked for them. The one where you said yes, where you were available, where their needs came first. There are 4 types of people who will test your wall, and you need to know exactly who they are and how they operate. Because if you can't identify the test, you can't pass it. Let's start with the most exhausting one. The crisis addict. You know this person. They live from emergency to emergency. Every text is urgent. Every problem is catastrophic. Every day is the worst day of their life. They don't want solutions. Let me repeat that. They don't want solutions. They want company in their chaos. They want you to panic with them. To validate that, yes, this is terrible, this is unfair, this is the worst thing that could possibly happen. And when you offer advice, when you suggest a way forward, they have 17 reasons why that won't work. Because fixing the problem ends the drama, and ending the drama means losing your attention. Here's the test. The moment you stop reacting, they'll find someone who will. And when they do, they'll tell you about it. They'll say things like, well, Sarah was there for me when I needed her. Translation. Sarah still responds to my 2 a.m. texts. Sarah still drops everything when I'm spiraling. Why don't you? The wall handles this simply. You stop reacting to emergencies that aren't emergencies. You acknowledge their struggle without absorbing it. You offer support without becoming the solution. And when they escalate because you're not panicking with them, you stay calm, because your peace is not the price of their crisis. Next up, the guilt dealer. This one's subtle, sophisticated. They don't ask directly, they imply. They suggest. They emotionally corner you until saying no feels like you're kicking a puppy. They say things like, I guess I'll just figure it out myself. Translation, you're abandoning me. They say, I thought you were different. Translation, you're failing my expectations. They say, it's fine, don't worry about it, in a tone that makes it clear nothing is fine and you should worry about everything. They trade in shame. Their currency is your discomfort, and they've figured out that if they can make you feel bad enough, you'll do what they want just to make that feeling stop. Here's the reality. This is emotional terrorism. It's not communication, it's manipulation. And the wall stops you from negotiating with it. How? You stop taking responsibility for their feelings about your boundaries. You stop explaining. You stop defending. You stop engaging with the guilt trip at all. They say, I guess I'll figure it out myself. You say, okay, good luck with that. No apology, no backtracking, no rushing in to prove you do care. You're not abandoning them. You're still a good person. You don't need their permission to have limits. And you don't need to feel guilty for enforcing them. Third, the boundary pusher. This person is persistent, relentless. They respect your no for exactly 5 minutes, then ask again differently. They reframe the request. They change the context. They wait a week and reintroduce the exact same thing with slightly different words. They wear you down through sheer persistence, hoping that eventually you'll say yes just to make it stop. Here's what they're counting on. Decision fatigue. They know that every time they ask, you have to decide again. And eventually, your willpower will crack. Your resolve will weaken. And you'll cave just to end the negotiation. The wall handles. This through consistency. Your answer doesn't change just because they ask differently. No means no the first time, the 5th time, the 50th time. The context doesn't matter. The reframing doesn't matter. The timing doesn't matter. What matters is this. The wall makes you boring to negotiate with. There's no angle they can work. No approach they haven't tried. No way in that you haven't closed. And eventually, they stop asking. Not because they respect your boundary, because they realize it's not going anywhere. That's the key. You don't need them to respect the boundary. You just need them to recognize it's real. Finally, the mirror. This one's dangerous because it's personal. These are the people who reflect your old patterns back at you, the ones you just escaped. They remind you of who you used to be. The fixer, the pleaser, the person who was always available, always accommodating, always sacrificing. And watching them exhaust themselves doing exactly what you used to do creates a choice. You can get pulled back in. You can think, I should help them. I know what they're going through. I can show them a better way. And before you know it, you're back in the dysfunction, trying to save someone who isn't asking to be saved. Or you can let them be the reminder, the living proof of why you built the wall in the first place. You can watch them run themselves into the ground and feel grateful. Grateful that's not you anymore. Grateful you got out. Grateful you chose differently. You have a choice. You can be the cautionary tale or the success story. But you can't be both. The mirror will test whether you've truly changed or if you're just on a break from your old patterns. And the only way to pass that test is to let them struggle without making it your responsibility to fix. Here's what all 4 of these people have in common. They benefit from your lack of boundaries. They need you to be unclear. They need you to feel guilty. They need you to be available without limits. And when you build the wall, when you set the boundaries, when you stop playing the game, they're going to push back. They're going to test. They're going to see if this is real or just temporary. Let them test. Let them push. Let them be disappointed, frustrated, confused by the new rules. Because every test you pass makes the wall stronger. Every boundary you enforce makes your position clearer. Every time you don't cave, you're teaching them and yourself that this is who you are now. It's not about being mean. It's about being consistent. It's not about not caring. It's about caring in a way that doesn't destroy you. It's not about pushing people away. It's about refusing to be pulled into their chaos. The crisis addict will find another audience. The guilt dealer will find someone else to manipulate. The boundary pusher will move on to easier targets. And the mirror will either change or stay stuck. But that's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is the wall. Building it, maintaining it, defending it when it gets tested. Because on the other side of these tests, on the other side of the guilt and the pressure and the pushback, that's where your peace lives. That's where your energy returns. That's where you remember what it feels like to breathe without carrying everyone else's weight. Chapter 5. Building the Wall. The 3 non-negotiables. You've made the decision. You've declared yourself unavailable. Now comes the hard part, making it stick. Because here's what happens next. The moment you start protecting your time, people will test you. They'll push. They'll guilt. They'll act like you've personally betrayed them by saying no. And if you're not prepared, if you don't have a structure in place, you'll fold. You'll apologize. You'll let them back in. That's why you need a wall, not a suggestion. Not a guideline, a wall. Something solid. Something immovable. Something that doesn't bend just because someone's feelings got hurt. This chapter gives you 3 non-negotiables. 3 rules that hold no matter what. No matter who's asking. No matter how loud they get. These aren't up for debate. These aren't flexible. These are the foundation of every boundary you'll ever set. Let's build the wall. Non-negotiable. 1. Your time is not community property. Don't owe anyone an explanation for being unavailable. Read that again. You don't owe anyone an explanation, not your coworker, not your friend, not your family member who just needs 5 minutes. You don't have to justify your evening. You don't have to defend your weekend. You don't have to apologize for your lunch break. Your time is yours. Period. Access to you is a privilege, not a right. And you, only you, decide who earns it. This is where most people break. They say no, but then they immediately follow it up with an explanation. An apology, a reason. And the reason becomes the negotiation point. Oh, you're busy with X? Well, what if we do it after X? You need rest? Can't you rest later? Stop giving reasons. When you explain yourself, you're asking for permission. You're inviting them to evaluate whether your reason is good enough. And guess what? It never will be. Because if they wanted to respect your boundary, they wouldn't be pushing in the first place. You have a choice. You can keep explaining yourself and watch your boundaries collapse. Or you can stop justifying and let the wall do its job. I'm not available. That's it. That's the sentence. No follow-up. No elaboration. No maybe later to soften the blow. Your time is not community property. You don't owe anyone your presence just because they want it. Non-negotiable number 2, their urgency. Is not your emergency poor planning on their part does not create an obligation on yours. Let me say that slower, poor planning on their part does not create an obligation on yours. If they needed you yesterday, they should have asked you last week. If they're in crisis mode, that's their crisis, not yours. The wall protects you from inherited deadlines and manufactured emergencies. Because here's the game they play. They procrastinate. They delay. They ignore the timeline. And then, at the last possible second, they turn to you and act like the world is ending. And because you're competent, because you're reliable, they expect you to drop everything and save. Them don't. You are not the emergency. Room for other people's poor decisions. This doesn't make you cruel. This doesn't make you cold. This makes you disciplined, because when you bail them out, you teach them that their lack of planning works. You reward the behavior, and next time, they'll do it again. Why wouldn't they? It worked. The wall says, "Your urgency is not my emergency." You don't have to fix their timeline. You don't have to absorb their stress. You don't have to rearrange your entire day because they didn't respect their own deadlines. That's the key. They didn't respect their deadlines. So why should you disrespect yours? You have a choice. You can keep rescuing people from their own dysfunction, or you can let the wall hold and let them learn that last-minute desperation doesn't equal instant access to you. Their emergency is not your responsibility. The wall holds. Non-negotiable, there are 3 you will not manage. Other people's emotions about your boundaries. They can be disappointed, they can be frustrated, they can even be angry. None of that is your responsibility to fix. This is the big one. This is where the wall either stands or crumbles, because the moment you set a boundary, someone's going to have feelings about it. And if you're not ready, if you haven't internalized this non-negotiable, you'll backtrack. You'll apologize. You'll soften the boundary just to make them feel better. Stop managing their emotions. You are not responsible for how they react to your no. You are not responsible for their disappointment. You are not responsible for soothing them, explaining yourself into oblivion, or twisting yourself into a pretzel to make them comfortable with your boundary. The wall holds even when people don't like it. Especially when people don't like it. Because here's what they're counting on. They're counting on you caring more about their feelings than your own well-being. They're counting on you folding under the weight of their guilt trip. They're counting on you prioritizing their comfort over your sanity. Don't give them what they're counting on. You don't need their permission to protect yourself. You don't need them to agree with your boundary for it to be valid. You don't need them to be happy about it. You have a choice. You can keep shrinking yourself to manage their reactions, or you can stand firm and let them process their own emotions like the adults they are. It's not about being harsh. It's about being clear. It's not about being unkind. It's about being unavailable. It's not about punishing them. It's about protecting you. The wall holds. Even when they're angry, even when they're hurt, even when they're convinced you're being unreasonable, their feelings are not your emergency either. The wall doesn't negotiate. These 3 non-negotiables aren't suggestions. They're not starting points for a conversation. They're the foundation. Your time is not community property. Their urgency is not your emergency. You will not manage their emotions about your boundaries. Memorize them. Internalize them. Live by them, because the wall doesn't negotiate. The wall doesn't apologize. The wall doesn't explain itself into weakness. The wall just stands, and when it stands long enough, people stop testing it. They stop pushing. They learn that you mean what you say. And the ones who can't respect the wall, they remove themselves. Good, let them. You're not building a wall to keep everyone out. You're building a wall to keep yourself in, to protect your time, to protect your energy, to protect the life you're trying to build. You have a choice. You can keep letting people climb over, dig under, and knock down your boundaries. Or you can build a wall so solid that even you can't tear it down in a moment of weakness. Build the wall. Hold the line. Protect what's yours. You've built the wall. You've made your boundaries non-negotiable. Chapter 6. What happens when you finally build it? You've built the wall. You've set the non-negotiables. You've decided that your time, your energy, your life, they're not up for grabs anymore. Now what? Here's what no one tells you. It gets worse before it gets better. The moment you start enforcing boundaries, people lose their minds. They don't celebrate your growth. They don't congratulate you for finally standing up for yourself. They push back, hard. And if you're not prepared for what comes next, you'll think you made a mistake. You'll think the boundary was the problem. You'll tear down the wall and go right back to where you started. Don't. This chapter is your warning and your roadmap. It's what happens when you finally build the wall, and why you need to keep it standing no matter what. Let's talk about the fallout. First, they'll test you harder than ever before. Moment you set a boundary, people will escalate. Not because they're evil, not because they hate you, but because the old system worked for them. And when a system stops working, people don't just accept it. They fight to restore it. This is called the extinction burst. It's a psychological principle. When a behavior that used to work suddenly stops working, the behavior intensifies before it goes away. Think of a child throwing a tantrum when you stop giving in to their demands. They don't throw a smaller tantrum. They throw the biggest tantrum yet. Adults do the same thing. They just dress it up better. They'll guilt trip you. I thought I could count on you. You've changed. You're not the person I used to know. Good. You have changed. That's the whole point. They'll say you're cold. You're distant. You don't care anymore. None of that is true. You care differently now. You care without destroying yourself. You care without sacrificing your sanity, but they don't want that version of caring. They want the version where you light yourself on fire to keep them warm. You have a choice. You can give in to the guilt and prove that the boundary wasn't real, or you can hold the line and teach them that the old system is dead. This is the hardest moment, because they're not just testing the boundary, they're testing you. They're waiting to see if you mean it. If you fold now, you'll have to start over. And next time, they'll push even harder, because they'll know the wall isn't real. Don't fold. The extinction burst doesn't last forever, but it only ends if you stop rewarding it. If you stand firm, the behavior will eventually extinguish itself. They'll either adapt to the new dynamic, or they'll leave. Which brings us to the second thing that happens. Second, the wrong people will leave. And that's the whole point. When you build a wall, some people won't climb it. They'll just walk away. Let them. The ones who only valued your availability will disappear. The ones who loved your lack of boundaries will call you selfish. The ones who built their entire relationship with you on the fact that you always said yes, they'll vanish the moment you say no, and you'll feel the loss. You'll wonder if you were too harsh, too rigid, too much. You weren't. You just stopped being useful. And for some people, that's all you ever were. That's the key. The wall isn't there to keep everyone. It's there to filter. It separates the people who respect you from the people who just used you. It reveals who loved you and who loved what you did for them. And yes, it hurts. Because some of those people will be people you cared about, people you thought were close, people you wanted in your life. But here's the truth. If the only way to keep someone in your life is to have no boundaries, they were never really in your life. They were just stationed at the exit, waiting for you to serve them. You don't need their permission to protect yourself. You don't need them to agree that your boundary was fair. You don't need them to stay. The wrong people leaving is not a failure. It's the system working, because the wall doesn't just keep people out. It clears space for the right people to get in. The ones who respect your no. The ones who value you even when you're not useful. The ones who don't need you to be available 24/7 to prove you care. Those people exist. But you'll never find them if you're too busy managing the ones who don't respect you. You have a choice. You can keep lowering the wall to make room for people who will never appreciate it. Or you can let the wrong people leave and trust that the space they leave behind will be filled with something better. Let them go. The wall holds. Third, you'll finally meet the version of yourself that doesn't need to be needed. This is the part no one talks about. The quiet shift that happens when the dust settles and the wall is still standing. You stop deriving worth from how much you give. You stop measuring love by how much you sacrifice. You stop believing that your value is tied to your usefulness. For years, maybe your whole life, you've been running on a simple equation. The more I give, the more I matter. The more I sacrifice, the more I'm loved. The more I'm available, the more I'm valued. And then you built the wall, and you discovered something terrifying and liberating at the same time. You matter even when you're not giving. You're loved even when you're not sacrificing. You're valued even when you're unavailable. That's the version of yourself you'll meet on the other side of the wall. The version that doesn't need to be needed. The version that doesn't collapse under the weight of other people's expectations. The version that knows its worth isn't contingent on how much it can endure. This version is quiet. It's not loud. It's not performing. It's just there. Solid, grounded, unshakable. And here's what this version knows. The most generous thing you ever did was stop letting people weaponize your empathy. Because that's what was happening. Your kindness, your compassion, your willingness to help, it was being weaponized. Turned into a tool to extract more from you, used against you every time you tried to protect yourself. And you let it happen because you thought that's what good people do. Good people give. Good people sacrifice. Good people put everyone else first. No. Good people have boundaries. Good people protect themselves. Good people know that sustainable generosity requires self-preservation. It's not about being selfish. It's about being whole. It's not about closing your heart. It's about protecting it. It's not about loving less. It's about loving differently. You have a choice. You can go back to the old version of yourself, the one that gives until there's nothing left. Or you can stay here behind the wall, with the version that knows it doesn't have to destroy itself to be worthy of love. Stay here. The wall reveals the truth building. The wall doesn't just change your relationships. It changes you. You'll face the extinction burst. Let it pass. The wrong people will leave. Let them go. And on the other side, you'll find the version of yourself that doesn't need to be needed. That version is who you were always supposed to be. Before people taught you that your worth was measured in what you could give. Before you learned to shrink yourself to make others comfortable. Before you believed that boundaries made you bad, the wall reveals the truth. About them, about you, about what was real and what was just dependency dressed up as connection. You've built the wall. You've weathered the storm. Now comes the part where you learn to live behind it and discover that protected doesn't mean isolated. Chapter 7. Maintaining the wall. Without becoming a wall, you built the wall. Good. Now here's the part most people screw up. They turn themselves into stone. They confuse protection with isolation. They think boundaries mean becoming cold, unreachable, emotionally dead. That's not the point. The wall protects you. It doesn't isolate you. And if you can't tell the difference, you're going to end up alone. Not because you chose solitude, but because you became unbearable. Let me be clear. There's a massive difference between boundaries and barricades. Boundaries are intentional, selective, strategic. Barricades are reactive, total. They're what happens when you give up on discernment and just shut everything down. You're not trying to shut people out. You're curating depth. You're saying no to shallow urgency so you can say yes to meaningful connection. That's the key. The wall isn't about keeping everyone away. It's about keeping the wrong people away so the right ones can actually reach you. Think about it. When you let everyone in, you give no one anything real. Your energy gets spread so thin it's worthless. Your attention becomes cheap. Your presence becomes background noise. That's not generosity, that's waste. The wall changes that. It forces people to recognize that access to you is valuable, that your time, your emotional bandwidth, your care, these things matter. And when something matters, it gets treated differently. But here's where people lose the plot. They start treating everyone like a threat. Every request becomes manipulation. Every need becomes an imposition. Every emotion becomes a trap. That's not discipline. That's fear dressed up as strength. You have a choice. You can build a wall that has gates, or you can build a fortress with no way in. One protects you while allowing connection. The other guarantees you'll never be hurt again, because you'll never feel anything again. Which one are you choosing? Compassion doesn't require compliance. Read that again. You can care deeply about someone's struggle without making it your mission to fix. You can witness their pain without absorbing it. You can listen, acknowledge, support, without sacrificing yourself on the altar of their crisis. Most people don't know how to do this. They think caring means doing. They think love means carrying. So they pick up every burden, solve every problem, rescue every person, and then wonder why they're exhausted, resentful, and empty. Empathy is feeling with someone, not feeling for them. That distinction is everything. When you feel with someone, you're present. You're connected. You're human. When you feel for someone, you're drowning. You've taken their pain and made it yours. You've confused solidarity with martyrdom. The wall keeps that distinction clear. It lets you hold space without losing yourself in it. It lets you offer support without becoming a crutch. It lets you care without becoming responsible for outcomes you can't control. You're not their savior. That's not your job. Your job is to protect your capacity to care so that when you show up, you actually show up, not as some depleted, resentful shell going through the motions because you feel obligated. Here's the truth most people are too afraid to admit. Not everyone deserves access to you. Not everyone has earned your energy. Not everyone respects what you offer. And continuing to give to people who don't value it isn't kindness. It's cowardice. You're afraid of being judged. Afraid of being called selfish. Afraid of being seen as cold or uncaring. So you keep the gates open for people who walk all over you, and you wonder why you feel so violated. Stop it. The strongest walls have gates. You just control who gets the key. There will be people worth lowering the wall for. People who respect your time. People who reciprocate. People who don't mistake your boundary for a challenge. People who understand that no means no, not maybe, not negotiate, not convince me. These are the ones you let in. Fully and freely. Because they've earned trust. Because they've demonstrated that they understand value. Because they treat access to you like the gift it is, not like an entitlement. Not like a resource to exploit. Not like a dumping ground for their chaos. When you let these people in, something amazing happens, connection deepens, intimacy becomes real, vulnerability becomes safe. Because you're not performing generosity for people who don't appreciate it. You're sharing yourself with people who do. That's what the wall was always for. Not to keep everyone out, to keep the right people close and the wrong people at bay. But you have to do the work of discernment. You have to pay attention. You have to notice who respects the boundary and who resents it, who honors your time and who wastes it, who gives as much as they take and who just takes. The people who resent your boundaries, they were never your people. They were using you. And now that you're no longer available for use, they're upset. Let them be upset. Their discomfort is not your responsibility. The people who respect your boundaries, they're relieved. Because they want real connection too. They don't want surface-level, performative, exhausting relationships any more than you do. They want depth, reciprocity, mutual respect. And your wall signals that you're serious about protecting what matters. So yes, build the wall. Maintain the wall. Defend the wall when people try to climb it uninvited. But don't become the wall. Don't let protection turn into isolation. Don't let boundaries turn into bitterness. Stay warm behind the wall. Stay open to the people who've earned access. Stay human, because the goal was never to stop feeling. The goal was to stop letting other people's chaos dictate what you feel. You're not shutting down. You're waking up. You're choosing connection over compulsion, depth over obligation, quality over quantity. And that choice, that's the difference between a wall that protects and a wall that imprisons. You decide which one you're building. Every single day, every single interaction, every time someone asks for more than they've earned and you have to choose whether to give it anyway or hold your ground. Choose the ground. Not because you're cold, Because you're clear. Because you know what you're worth. Because you understand that true connection only happens when both people value what's being shared. You maintain the wall without becoming one. That's mastery. Now let's talk about what you do with the peace you've created behind it. Because silence isn't just the absence of noise. It's the presence of power. Chapter 8. The cost of not building it without the wall. You don't have a life. You have a reaction to other people's lives. You move when they move. You stop when they stop. You think you're living, but what you're really doing is responding. That's the cost of not building it. Without boundaries, you become an echo, not a voice. You start the day reacting to texts, to emails, to moods that aren't yours. You wake up already behind because your attention has been claimed by everyone but you. And here's the truth. The world rewards people who protect their energy and forgets those who don't. That's the brutal trade-off. Your calendar gets filled with obligations you didn't choose. Your hours get stolen by other people's emergencies. Your mind becomes crowded with noise, none of it yours. And every time you say yes when you mean no, that wall you never built takes another piece of you. You have a choice. Build the wall now, or spend the rest of your life repairing the damage from not having one. People think the cost of saying no is losing. Relationships, they're wrong. The real cost is losing yourself. When you don't build the wall, you become everyone's open door. Anyone can walk through. They'll take your time, your focus, your energy, and they won't even realize it, because to them, it's normal. You've trained them to expect access. You've taught them that your peace is negotiable. That's the key. You've trained the world to treat you the way it does, and the world never stops taking what you don't protect. Look around your life, the exhaustion you feel. That's not from working too hard. It's from working for everyone else's comfort. The resentment you carry, that's the bill, the cost, for never building the wall. You think kindness is the problem, but it's not. It's lack of boundaries. It's not about being cold. It's about being clear. You've confused peacekeeping with peace building. Peacekeeping is saying yes to avoid conflict. Peace building is saying no to protect your energy. One makes people happy. The other makes you strong. Here's what happens when you don't build it. You become the person people call when they need something, and ignore when they don't. You start mistaking usefulness for connection. You think their requests mean you matter. But it's not affection. It's convenience. You're not a friend. You're a function, and the saddest part? You'll keep showing up anyway. You'll convince yourself. This time it'll be different. You'll pour more effort into people who have already shown you their priorities. That's the cost. You lose your energy, your peace, and eventually, your identity. Let me make it clear. People don't set your boundaries. You do. If you're constantly being drained, disrespected, or dismissed, it's not because the world is cruel. It's because you didn't build the wall. You think you're being generous, but you're being careless, and with your time, your attention, your life. You can't keep saying yes to everyone and expect to recognize yourself in the mirror. You'll become unrecognizable, not because you changed, but because you disappeared. That's what happens when you let everyone else draw the map of your life. Listen, every yes you give someone else is a no to yourself. Every time you save someone from their own consequences, you teach them that your peace is disposable. Every time you chase validation, you lose power. Every time you avoid discomfort, you invite chaos. It's not about being selfish. It's about being sovereign. You can't lead your life if you keep handing over the steering wheel. You can't find inner peace if you keep outsourcing your worth. You have a choice. You can keep trying to make everyone happy, or you can finally make yourself whole. That's the cost of not building it. Permanent exhaustion disguised as loyalty. If you don't build the wall, you'll eventually lose yourself completely, and no one will even notice, because the version of you they know isn't the real one. It's the accommodating one, the flexible one, the one who always makes it work. But that version of you is a performance, not a person. They don't know your real boundaries because you've never enforced them. They don't know your real values because you've always compromised them. They don't know your real needs because you've always hidden them. And if you keep sacrificing yourself to keep them comfortable, neither will you. You don't need their permission to rest. You don't need their approval to say no. You don't need their understanding to protect your peace. You just need courage and a wall. Start with this. Decide what no longer deserves your time. Write it down, cut it out. Stop justifying your exhaustion as empathy. Stop explaining your boundaries like apologies. Stop trying to prove your worth through suffering. That's the work. That's the wall. And when you finally build it, the right people will respect it. The wrong people will leave. Either way, you win because peace isn't given. It's guarded. You have a choice. Live as a reaction or live as a decision. That's the cost of not building it and the freedom of finally doing so. You've learned why the wall matters. You've faced the price of living without it. Now it's time to take that power back, not through words, but through stillness. Because the strongest person in any room is the one who doesn't need to explain their peace. Chapter 9. The phrases that defend the wall. The wall doesn't protect itself. It stands because you defend it, with words, tone, and the courage to mean what you say. You built the wall to guard your peace. Now you have to speak in a way that keeps it standing. Words are boundaries. Every sentence you speak either strengthens the wall or tears a brick out of it. That's the key. Most people lose their peace. One word at a time. They say maybe when they mean no. They say sure when they're already exhausted. They think being agreeable earns respect. But it only invites more taking. You don't need to argue. You don't need to explain. You just need new language. Precise, calm, and final. Let's talk about the 3 phrases that defend the wall. Phrase 1. I'm not available for that. It's not, I can't. It's not, I wish I could. It's not, maybe next time. It's a simple declaration. I'm not available for that. It's clean. It's clear. It's powerful. You're not explaining your reasons. You're asserting your reality. That's how the wall speaks. Not through guilt, but through certainty. When you say, I can't, you invite debate. They'll ask, why not? They'll offer solutions. They'll negotiate your peace. But when you say, I'm not available for that, there's no entry point. It ends the conversation before it begins. You don't need their permission to prioritize your time. You don't owe anyone your exhaustion. You're not a machine. For other people's convenience, you have a choice. Speak in ways that drain you, or speak in ways that defend you. I'm not available for that. Is how you remind the world that your time has value. That's the key. Your time has value. And every time you say this phrase, you're training people to recognize that value. Phrase 2. That sounds like something you'll need to figure out. This one shifts the weight back where it belongs. It's not cold. It's not cruel. It's clarity. You're not the solution to every problem. You're not the answer to every question. You are not their emotional emergency hotline. The wall doesn't absorb everyone's crisis. It reflects it back. This phrase is your mirror. That sounds like something you'll need to figure out. You're not refusing to help. You're refusing to carry. You're giving people back the dignity of responsibility. That's love in its strongest form, not enabling weakness, but calling forth strength. You have a choice. You can keep rescuing people who never learn to swim, or you can let them build their own endurance. That's the key. Because every time you solve someone's problem for them, you rob them of the lesson, and every time you do it again, you rob yourself of peace. You don't need to carry what isn't yours. You don't need to feel guilty for not saving everyone. You don't need to be the emotional janitor for people who refuse to clean their own mess. You can say it calmly, with empathy, with strength. That sounds like something you'll need to figure out. It's not rejection, it's redirection. That's the difference between being kind and being consumed. Phrase 3. I care about you, and I'm not doing that. This is the strongest boundary sentence ever constructed. It's the sentence of emotional adulthood. It separates love from labor. It says, I value you, but I also value myself. It proves you can care deeply without sacrificing completely. That's the key. You've been taught that love means service, that care means constant giving, but love without limits becomes resentment, and resentment is poison, slow, silent, and self-inflicted. You can say no without closing your heart. You can care and still choose yourself. I care about you, and I'm not doing that. It's the bridge between empathy and integrity. It lets the wall stand firm, not as a punishment, but as protection. And when people hear it, they'll feel your strength. Some will respect it, others will test it. Let them. Your peace isn't up for negotiation. You don't need to convince anyone that your boundaries are fair. You don't need to prove that your wall is necessary. You just need to hold it. These 3 phrases together form your language of power. They do 3 things. They remove negotiation from your boundaries. They shift responsibility where it belongs. They allow love without self-betrayal. That's the discipline. That's the difference between reaction and leadership. You're not being harsh. You're being honest. You're choosing truth over comfort because comfort keeps you trapped. Truth sets you free. You have a choice. Speak from fear or speak from strength. You know which one builds the wall. Here's what happens when you start using these phrases consistently. At first, people will resist. They'll accuse you of changing. They'll call you distant, selfish, cold. That's just their discomfort with your growth. They're not used to the version of you that chooses peace over approval. Don't explain. Don't defend. Just repeat your truth. I'm not available for that. That sounds like something you'll need to figure out. I care about you, and I'm not doing that. Say it calmly. Say it confidently. Say it until your nervous system stops flinching at your own strength. That's the key. The nervous system must adapt to self-respect. It'll feel uncomfortable at first because you're breaking a pattern of people-pleasing. But discomfort is not danger, it's growth. You don't need to be cruel to be clear. You just need to stop apologizing for your clarity. The wall you build with words will outlast every argument because language is energy, and energy directs attention. If your words are scattered, so is your peace. If your words are strong, so is your foundation. Speak like someone who knows their worth. Speak like someone who's done chasing validation. Speak like someone who's done performing calm while dying inside. You don't need their permission to rest. You don't need their permission to protect your space. You don't need their permission to live on your own terms. You just need courage and consistent language. That's how you defend the wall. You've built your boundaries. You've learned how to defend them. But there's one thing that still matters more than protection: presence. Because the strongest wall means nothing if the person inside it is restless, reactive, or chasing noise. The next step is learning the power of stillness, the discipline that recharges everything you protect. Chapter 10. Peace is not passive. It's protected. Peace isn't luck. It's not something you stumble into when the world finally quiets down. It's built, protected, maintained. You don't get peace by waiting for people to behave. You get peace by deciding that no one else's behavior will control your emotional state. That's the key, because peace isn't passive, it's protected. So here's where we are. You know what the unseen wall is now. You know why you need it? You know the people who will test it, the phrases that defend it, and the cost of living without it. The only question left is whether you're actually going to build it, or whether you're going to close this audiobook, nod along, and go right back to the same patterns that brought you here. Because here's the truth. Nothing changes until you do. Not your relationships, not your energy, not your peace. The wall doesn't build itself. It's built one boundary at a time, one uncomfortable conversation at a time, one moment of choosing yourself even when it feels selfish. And yes, people will be upset. Yes, some will leave. Yes, you'll second-guess yourself 100 times in the first week. But on the other side of that discomfort is a version of you that doesn't flinch when someone asks for too much. A version that doesn't lose sleep over someone else's poor planning. A version that loves people without losing yourself to them. That version is waiting. The wall is the bridge. So stop reading about boundaries and start enforcing them. Stop talking about self-respect and start practicing it. Build the unseen wall, defend it, and never apologize for refusing to let someone else's chaos become your identity. Your peace has always been yours to protect. Now go protect it. Let that sink in. Protected means there's a wall, a structure, a line between what enters your mind and what stays outside. Most people don't have that line. They let every vibration, every complaint, every piece of bad energy flow through them. And then they wonder why they're tired all the time. They confuse being peaceful with being agreeable. They confuse being kind with being available. But real peace has edges. It's not soft. It's not always gentle. It's disciplined. Peace demands you choose your battles and your silence with precision. You can't fight every noise that comes at you. You can't solve every storm that spins near your life. Some things you let pass. Some people you let go. You have a choice. You can live as a sponge, absorbing everyone's anxiety and guilt until you dissolve into nothing. Or you can become the wall, strong, centered, unmoved by every wave that crashes against you. That's the discipline. Because peace without boundaries is fantasy. You can meditate all day. You can journal, breathe, pray. But if you still allow chaos access to your time, your phone, your energy, your peace won't last. You can't protect what you won't guard. That's the problem. Most people don't guard anything. Their phone buzzes, instant reaction. Someone calls, instant answer. Someone disrespects them, they explain themselves to death. You can't be peaceful when you're reactive. Reaction is chaos's favorite language. You need to learn the art of stillness under pressure. The discipline of neutrality. The power of not letting other people's storms dictate your weather. That's real power. That's peace. Here's what peace sounds like in practice. I understand you're upset, but I'm not joining you there. Simple, controlled, boundary intact. You're not heartless. You're focused. You care, but you don't carry. Because every time you carry what's not yours, you drop what is. You drop your focus. You drop your self-respect. You drop your own priorities. And here's the truth no one tells. You, the people who truly love you, will never demand that you destroy yourself to prove it. They'll respect the wall. They'll appreciate your peace because it improves the quality of your presence. When you protect your peace, you stop resenting people. You stop building quiet bitterness inside your chest. You start showing up from strength, not exhaustion. That's what peace gives you, capacity. But peace requires courage. You have to be willing to disappoint people. You have to be okay being misunderstood. Because when you stop over-explaining your boundaries, some will call you cold. When you stop saying yes to every request, some will label you selfish. Let them. You don't need their permission. It's not about being Selfish. It's about being self-aware. It's not about rejection. It's about protection. Every no you say to the wrong thing is a yes to the life you're trying to build. That's the key. So start treating your peace like your most valuable asset, because it is. It's the foundation for every other discipline in your life. Without peace, your focus fades. Without peace, your energy leaks. Without peace, even success feels hollow. People think success brings peace. They've got it backwards. Peace brings success, because when you're calm inside, you think clearly. You move intentionally. You make choices from logic, not panic. You stop reacting and you start directing. That's the shift. That's when your life starts to feel like yours again. So let's get practical. Here's how you protect your peace every single day. Audit your inputs. What are you allowing in? Who are you listening to? What are you consuming? Your peace can't survive if your environment is constantly toxic. Be ruthless with your filters. Set energetic office hours. Not everyone gets access to you at all times. Protect your mornings. Protect your rest. Protect your focus hours. You can't run at 100% if you're always on call. Master the pause. Before reacting, pause, breathe. Ask, does this require my energy or just my awareness? Most things don't need action. They need distance, detached from outcomes. Peace dies when you try to control everything. You can't control people. You can't control timing. But you can control your presence. That's enough. Honor your own capacity. Stop giving more than you have. Stop apologizing for recharging. Rest is not laziness. It's maintenance. Each of these is a brick in the wall. Together, they build the fortress that holds your peace. And when guilt shows up, and it will, you remind yourself, my peace is not selfish. My boundaries are not cruelty. Say it again until it sticks. My peace is not selfish. My boundaries are not cruelty. Because guilt is how the world manipulates the disciplined. But you know better now. You've learned that protecting your peace doesn't make you unkind. It makes you unstoppable. You can't pour from an empty soul. You can't inspire from exhaustion. The world doesn't need your depletion. It needs your clarity. That's the real service. That's the real strength. You've reached the final lesson. You've learned that silence is power, that boundaries are self-respect, that the wall isn't about separation, it's about preservation. You've learned that peace isn't the absence of pressure. It's the presence of purpose. The world will keep testing you. People will still try to cross the line. Life won't stop being loud. But now you know how to stay still in the storm. You've built something solid inside yourself, a quiet no one can take. That's your wall. That's your armor. That's your freedom. You built the discipline. You reclaimed your focus. You earned your peace. This is the quiet comeback. And the final truth? You never needed the world to be calm. You just needed to become unshakable within it.